Okay, welcome everyone to this webinar on the ISPA Public Works Assessment Tool user experiences from Tanzania. Can we go to the next slide? In the panel we have 5 persons. I'm going to give a short introduction to the work. My name is Timo Voipio. I'm co-leading the European Union Social Protection Systems program, which is co-financed by European Commission, OECD, Finland, and Germany. We could go now to the next slide. The public works expert, real expert here is Chief Engineer Barnabas Jachi from Tanzania, from the Tanzania Social Action Fund. He is leading the TASAF work, TASAF productive social safety net work on public works. Next. Dampu Ndenzako is the social protection expert of ILO in Tanzania. He has a wide experience on various aspects of social protection, but he played a very critically important role in the preparation and facilitation of this ISPA assessment in Tanzania. Next. Malkamäki is my colleague from the European Union Social Protection Systems Program, or EU-SPS as we call it. So we are both based in Helsinki. Markku has a long experience on microfinance and social protection in Eastern Africa. And from our team, from the EU-SPS, he spent the longest time, the full 2 weeks, on this public works assessment. I was there for a week, and our colleagues Alessandra Heinemann and Alex Pick from the OECD, they were there also only for part of the time. Let's go to the next. And as a discussant, we have here Veronika Wodzak, who is social security expert from the ILO headquarters in Geneva, and she has been extremely important in setting up the cooperation among agencies on this interagency social protection assessment tools program. So Veronika will be commenting after our presentations. Next. Okay, and here's our presentation really starts. We were, as you know, interagency social protection assessment tools, or ISPA, are meant to provide an opportunity for international agencies and bilateral partners to work together with partners in countries on assessing the performance of the social protection programs using the best practice or the good practice that's available from the various international organizations, from experience from many countries. Normally, we invite one agency to coordinate the work, 1 or 2 agencies, and we invited also in our case basically all international partners to cooperate. But in this practical work, ILO and the EU-SPS participated and were hosted by TASAF, Tanzania Social Action Fund, which is a major, which is the largest social protection program in the country. we can take the next slide now. So this is how it looks like in Tanzania. This is forest-related public works. Let's go to the next slide, please. And this is an earth-filled dam that was also produced through public works inputs. Let's go to the next slide. Still a fish pond, also produced through public works. Next. So here are some information about the partner organizations. Most importantly, TASAF. It is one of the largest cash transfer programs in Africa, pretty similar to the Ethiopian Productive Social Safety Net program. In TASAF PSSN, there are three major components: the conditional cash transfers, we call it CCT, the Public Works Program, and Livelihoods Enhancement Program. Barnabas will be able to tell more details about this. And ILO is very much involved in the public works through two approaches. On the other hand, as a major player in social protection development, but also through the ILO approach to employment-intensive investments. And these inputs overlap a lot. The EU Social Protection Systems Program, as I told, is funded by European Commission, OECD, Finland, and Germany. We work in 11 countries. 7 of them are in Africa, and 4 of them are in Asia. And our from the Finland office in Helsinki, our main role in this program is to support the efforts of national authorities in systematizing their social protection efforts. And the idea for the Public Works ISPA assessment came up pretty organically during at the time when some of us participated in a regular TASAF annual review mission. And we had just completed the ISPA Public Works Assessment tool, and we started using the assessment framework. You will see soon what the assessment framework looks like. We started to use it as we were observing the communities where public works had been implemented. We sat down on the back of the four-wheel drive vehicle as we were traveling, and we had the colleague of Barnabas, another engineer from TASAF, Abel Mbeliga, and we asked him questions using that assessment framework, and it turned out quite useful for us. So then we suggested that how about if we do a full public works assessment using the ISPA assessment tool. Next slide. So according to the tool, there is a number of areas that we try to assess first the targeting and eligibility of the program, nature of benefits, timing and duration, asset creation and services, institutions, coordination of financing, monitoring and evaluation, coherence and integration with other ongoing government programs and programs funded by partners, skills development and employability, and of course conditions of work and labor practices. Next slide, please. And here on the left side you can see the assessment report that we completed in 2016, and it was finally published in February 2017. It's available on the website, to which there's a link below, and there's more information about the TASAF Productive Social Safety Net program and its public work component on the website, to which there's a link at the bottom of the page. And now I will stop, and I will invite first Chief Engineer Barnabas Jachi to speak, then Dampu Ndenzako from ILO, and Malkamäki from EU-SPS. We'll take a bit like turns, so Barnabas will speak first, then Dampu, then Barnabas will come back, and Markku, and let's see how it goes. Then Veronica will be speaking towards the end, making comments. So Barnabas, welcome, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Timo. Next slide, please. Yeah, I'll talk briefly about TASAF. It's a government initiative that was supposed to start in the year 2000. And during the last 15, 17 years, we had about 3 phases. Phase 1 was from year 2000 up to year 2005. And the second phase was from 2005 up to 2013. But both of these phases focus mainly on services, improving social services, as well as food insecure household through public works initiatives. Next slide. So after those 2 phases, the government decided to implement a productive social safety net, which basically the objective is to enable poor households to increase income and opportunity, but at the same time improving consumption through a series of interventions, which I'm going to mention them in the next slide. Initially, when the productive social safety net was started, the target was to reach 275 households. But midway in September 2013, the government and development partners decided to reach 1 million households, approximately about 6.6 million people, in 18 months. Because the biggest task was to target the poor household in each district of the country. So we did a massive scale up, and that was agreed, completed within the agreed time, that is in 18 months. So from now there on, 1.1 million households are receiving bi-monthly cash transfers. Next slide. The productive social safety net, as Timo has said, basically has about 3 components. One is conditional cash transfer, and that is it entails all the households that have been enrolled and targeted and enrolled. And then the second one is on the conditional cash transfer, the core responsibility for health and education. The children should attend school, and the under 5 should attend the clinic. But also we have public works program. Currently it's covering about 1/3 of the district, and they also their livelihood enhancement, which entails providing skills for the beneficiary to make some savings. Next slide, please. So I'll just talk about targeting enrollment. We use both the geographical targeting and the community targeting. With the community targeting, communities themselves, they were told about how the program is, and there was a way of ensuring that only the poor households are being targeted. After the community targeting, there was a questionnaire that was administered to each of the household, and the information was sent to the proximity test, and the results of the we target over 1.3 million household, but those who were enrolled and were qualified for the support is about 1.1 million household. So all these information of household information, including household members, what asset do they have, they are all stored in our unified registry of beneficiaries. Next. In this slide, you can see the distribution of productive social net the beneficiaries. You can see that about 10% of the beneficiaries are about over 60 years, and 33% over 19 to 60 years. And this group are the one who are being targeted to participate in public works, although some of them who are over 60 years are also participating, but having somebody instead of the household representative, somebody else can go and work, but the payment is made to the household representative. And then 39%, they are aged about 6 to 18 years, and these are the ones who are being enrolled to attend school, both primary school and the secondary school. And 10% are 2 to 5 years. Those are eligible for attending the clinic, and as well as 8% for years 2 up to 2 years. Next slide. Yeah, I think this one I have already said that women household over 60 years about 55%, men over 60 years old 38%, women with a disabled person 3%, and men with a disabled person about 3%. So you can see from this table, most of the beneficiaries are women, and they are the ones who are receiving the regular cash transfer, both the basic transfer, conditional cash transfer, as well as public works. Next slide. I just wanted to talk about the benefit structure. What do they get from the enrollee household? There's a basic transfer of about $6.1 for each of the households that have been enrolled. But if the household is a child, then they receive 2.4, and then there is an infant benefit that is $2.4, and then there is primary school benefit, it's about 1.2, and those who are attending secondary school, it's about 2.4, and then there's this A-level secondary school is about 3.6. So there's conditions for infant to receive the $2.4, then they have to attend clinic. The rest have to attend the secondary school, from primary school, secondary school, up to advanced secondary school. But then we applied a cap, that is the maximum benefit, if the household meet all the conditions that they receive the basic transfer. There is a child who is under 5 and children who are supposed to attend school. The maximum cap is about $23, and this is paid on by monthly basis. Next slide. Now, let me talk very briefly about the institutional arrangement. At the national level, we have the National Steering Committee. This is always appointed by the President, because TASAF is under the President's office. But on the daily basis of the operations, we have TASAF Management Unit, of which I also belong. But also at the ministry level, there's a representative from each sector, from each ministry. The responsibility is to provide technical support for the sector norms and standard, especially for the public works, because we need to adhere to sector norms and standard. And these are normally provided by the sector ministry. Next. At the district level, TASAF is working with the local government authorities in all areas. So over there, we have the council management team, but also we have the technical expertise who are providing support to the communities. We are working with the ward extension staff at the ward level, And at the village level, there's a community management committee. This was selected in a meeting to provide the support for the program, but also for the public works, local service provider is the drawing and to support implementation of the public works project on daily basis until when the project is complete. Next slide. Now, let me talk about the public works program under the productive social safety net. Compared to the previous public works under TASAF 1 and 2, this is a safety net intervention that the aim is to cash transfer for the enrolled household to earn additional income, but through their participation in public works activities during the lean season. And we have divided the country into two seasons, that is the uni model, those areas where they receive only one rainfall in season, and then there are those areas where there are two rainfall seasons. So we have bimodal and unimodal. Now, for the public works, apart from cash transfer, then the secondary objective is to create community asset, but also to impart skills to beneficiaries so that they use the skill to graduate out of poverty. Next slide. There are guiding principles which public works is following, and public works under productive social safety net is labor intensive and use simple tools. So we made sure that in every sub-project, 75% of the budget is for wages, and then to 25% is for the other input like tools, training, local sales provider, and some administrative costs. But then in order to get the intervention, then the community are subjected to do a participatory planning and designing. Another thing is that about the program, it offers about 15 days of working per month for 4 months, and that the household can earn about $81, close to around 138 Tanzanian shillings for the whole of 60 days. So this is in addition to the other income which is being they are receiving through the bi-monthly cash transfer, that is the basic transfer and the conditional cash transfer. Next slide. Another guiding principle is that in order to participate in public works, first, the participation is voluntary, but only those households that have been enrolled in the program can participate. Our experience has shown that almost 96% are participating in the public works intervention. Only few, those very old and they're not able to work, they are not participating. But in most cases, the household do prefer to participate, and there's been a very high demand to expand public works in the other areas of the country. But also the most important thing is to ensure that the planning of the public works consider the integration of activities. For example, if you decide to do the charcoal dam, then they have to consider some other activities that are part and parcel of the charcoal dam activities. And the work is also allocated according to the ability of women to participate. So they maybe 1 kilometer, so that they have reserved enough energy for them to participate in public works, because this needs labor. Next slide. Now I will quickly talk about the application of ISPA to public works in the country. The assessment was made in 2016, and the objective was to enhance delivery of the effective of public works. When the assessment was done, it was done to only 5 out of 8 districts that implemented public works, and that was the initial year in 2014-15. Right now, public works is being implemented in 44 districts all over the country, about 1/3, because we have a total of 161 districts. So public works have been covered to 44 districts. So when ISPA was being administered, the consultant went through 15 sub-projects to collect data. And also the interview were made to the sector experts from each ministry, TASAF staff, district staff, village, community level, and local service provider, so that you gather enough data to validate the information. Next slide.
Now this is for
yeah, that is for Dampu. Okay, thank you so much. Welcome, Dampu.
Thank you. Thank you so much, previous speakers. So basically, based on this assessment, I think this assessment has 2 key objectives. And one of the objectives was actually to undertake the assessment, to assess the whole public works component of the TASAF, but also so that we can be able to understand how the implementation is being done, but also what are the achievements, what are the challenges, and what are the gaps, so that at least the assessment can be able to determine and be able also to recommend how the gaps can be addressed. So actually that was one of the objectives. But also the second was also on to provide inputs on how to improve the tool itself. As you know, the tool has 8 different key components, but also it has a lot of questions to ask. So now in the process of actually doing this assessment, partly it was also, the objective was also to assess this and how the tool can be assessed. And the expected outcome was actually to have 2 key outcomes. One on ISPA report on the social protection in the public works program of the TASAF, but also to have actual recommendations that can be used to improve the tool actually in the future applications. Next. Now, in terms of the actual applications, we had some processes to be actually followed, and one was actually the discussions between the partners and the government through TASAF on the usefulness of the tool itself and the assessment on how little it can be able to improve the component of the program. So now actually this was discussed during the various joint missions, where actually it was also observed that during these TASAF joint missions, there were more partners actually in other components of the program than actually the public works. And then, of course, the ILO with other partners, EU-SPS and the OECD, thought to discuss with the government through TASAF management, and it brought the idea for the application of the public works, ISPA public works assessment tool. And then later, it was actually official, the TASAF made an official request to apply this tool. And then after that, then the negotiations actually carried on between the partners on how the actual process of the assessment will be done. After that, also including some of the resources to do this, but also with also other arrangements, including the logistics of conducting the assessment. I think the key important message on this is that actually the whole process of discussion and negotiation on the application of the tool was actually more engaging, and it was also government owned, but also in terms of the resources, TASAF had also to contribute on the resources to show also the commitment and the ownership of the process. In this sense, the EU-SPS program and the OECD made actually some payments, some funding to the consultants, and then all the groundwork, the logistics, the other related costs was actually covered by the TASAF. And in terms also of the data collection, So now we had also to look at the document itself, but also looking at what is in terms of the reports that are available, discussing the inception reports that actually was developed by the international consultants, but that was hired for this assessment. And then once the TASAF and the team was agreed, so that's where actually the whole team, including ILO, EU-SPS program, and the OECD, as well as TASAF, now went to the field for actual data collection. Next. So this is a kind of a methodology, and I think we have also talked on some of the information, but also it's actually meeting with the government counterparts, of which I think I've also talked, and my previous speakers have also talked on this. Then we did the desk review and a section of sites to visit. I think my previous speaker, Engineer Jachi, has also spoken on this, including also the sites that we visited, a number of sites and a number of sub-projects that were visited for data collection. But also we had a number of working sessions, actually both the ILO, EU-SPS, OECD, and TASAF, to discuss on a number of questions in the assessment matrix of the tool in terms of really analyzing the actual data that we have found from the field, try actually to understand and also putting into analysis of the data actually that we received from the field. We also provide the actual feedback actually that we got from the field, and they also try to triangulate and analyze it in a meaningful way. But also we did the site visits, as I've said, and before that, we had also a discussion of the preliminary findings with the government that actually we found from the field, so that we can assure that we are all in the same understanding between the partners who supported this assessment with also the government, and even also to approve actually some of the findings to ensure that actually they are also in alignment with actually the actual context, and ensuring that actually and also pave the way for the way forward in terms of development of the final report. Next. So in total, we visited a number of 15 sub-projects, actually which were implemented in around 10 villages. And in total, we actually visited 4 PAAs out of 8 PAAs where the initial public works interventions were being implemented. And now actually that's where the data collections and meeting, the interviews, the focus group discussions, the in-depth interviews, and detailed discussions actually as part of the data collection took place. Next. Next. Next slide. Now, this is the assessment matrix. Of course, as Timo has talked a bit on this, but this is the assessment matrix which has the different 4 columns. They're also assessing the key findings that actually was the key findings that were actually taken from the field in different 4 levels, from latent, emerging, moderate, and advanced stages. So on the key areas column, which has also the description, you will also see that it has detailed key areas for the assessment, which has around 7 areas. That is targeting and eligibility, nature of benefits, assets creation, institutional coordination and financing, M&E, coherence and integration across programs, but also skills and employability, but also the last one was conditions of work and labor practices. So we had to assess these key areas of the tool and to be able to rate them in different 4 categories based on the latent, emerging, moderate, and advanced. And you can see also the definition of each level, that when it says latent, that means there was significant attention, but also significant attention needs to be paid to the dimension. But also when it is rated as emerging, It means that these dimensions require vigilant elements of effective performance are in place, but also gaps and constraint persists. But on the areas that have been rated moderate, it means that satisfactory performance with most of the elements showing effective and efficient parameters, but also in areas where it was rated advanced, that means there is a high satisfactory practice with the broad-based success in the examined elements. So let's go now and see the key findings that actually we got from this assessment. Next slide. Now, on the first key area on the target and eligibility, it was rated targeting mechanism. Actually, it was actually rated as an advanced stage, or number 4. And the key findings was found that targeting mechanisms actually were in place, with also clear eligibility criteria. And as you know, the beneficiaries of the public works are also part of the beneficiaries of the whole program, including the livelihoods and the cash transfers. So that means targeting actually was also a comprehensive, especially during the initial stages of enrolling the beneficiaries into the program, especially through the first component of the cash transfer. Therefore, when the public works now came in as the second component, it actually capitalized on the targeting already that was already used during the first work that was done actually for enrolling through the cash transfer. But also in terms of participation of women and elderly, it was also found that this is one of the components that are being given a priority. And it was also found that actually based on the sub-projects visited indicated all beneficiaries had a chance to participate in the public works. It was also found that actually more than 70% women participation rate. And you also, I think this is also because of the first component of the program, which is a cash transfer, where actually the entry point is the households, but also women are being taken as the key recipient of the benefits. And now in that sense, you also find that actually women are more eager to participate in the other components actually compared to men. So that's why actually more women were also found more proactive and engaged actually in the program. Next. In terms of the nature of benefits, timing, and duration, it was also rated as an advanced stage with the description that task rate set that is actually 90% of the prevailing daily wage. It was also found that each participant actually from the household was allowed to work 6 days per year, and that means 15 days per month for 4 months during the rainy season from September to December, or from December to March. It was also found that wage received from public works is actually on top of the benefits received from the common targeting system. And actually this was, we also compared with the other public works programs that have in that nature, like actually the word for the program, the WFP program, actually that is for cash work for food. And we will also be able to quantify and also be able to consider and ask some other relevant questions actually related to the daily wage, related to the nature of the work, related to the public works. And we found that actually it is actually top related to what others actually are being paid in other programs. But also in terms of the payments, it was found that the payment was made by cash between 2 to 3 weeks after working for 15 days. And the focus group discussion that was done among the participants, actually it was, they suggested that they would benefit from the payment process being swifter, and the wages received cannot yet establish clear impact on local economy. And it was also found that actually payments received used to buy family needs, including school materials, farms inputs, animals, medicine, and the other portion of the savings, of course, which is it is being categorized actually as the household consumption. Next. In terms of the assets creation and services, now we had two different rates on emerging going to moderate. Actually, we found that the quality of assets it was found of a bit of concern, in the sense that design, operation, and maintenance were really some of the key issues that need to be considered. But also, on the other hand, on the moderate rate, it was also found that selection done using community participatory tools and for the program guidance, including the safeguards. And I think this was on the matter where actually the public works sub-project is being selected in a certain community, that it was found that the community are being involved. Now where actually there is the village meetings that are being called, then the whole process of identifying a certain sub-project to be implemented actually in that project is actually being participatory and actually being involved by all the communities. But also on the other hand, it was also found that there was inadequate technical support and supervision from local service providers. Now these are the people who are found at the local level, village and world level, and their key responsibility is actually to ensure that the sub-projects identified are being implemented as per expected measurements and the standards. And actually even the outputs are actually being done as per expected standards. Now, it was also found that based on the various public works guidelines, such as like the public works technical manual, it was found that actually there was a bit of inadequate technical support from these readers or these supervisors who are unable actually to quantify and actually be able to translate these practical tools into these guidelines into practical actions for them to be able to produce actually the quality assets. But also on the other hand, it was found that some project rationale was also defined and reflected actually the community needs in terms of prioritization. Now in these community meetings that actually they call for discussing the selection of the public works sub-projects, it was found that actually the sub-projects were actually identified based on the priorities, like what are the needs that actually the communities have, the resources available, and how actually the majority of the communities would go for. Next. In terms of institutions, coordination, and financing, it was also found in the two different rating, in the sense that at some point it was rated as emerging, in the sense that funds to cover all villages under the common targeting system is inadequate. Currently, the program covers 7% of the villages at district level. Now, this is the issue of the whole program, of the TASAF PSSN program. It's not only the public works component, that it shows actually based on the resources that are available for the whole program, there is no way that actually it can run and benefit the whole poorest of the poor in the country, in the whole village, in the all villages, rather than it covers just 7% of the villages in need. But also on the other hand, it was rated moderate, that it was found that actual actors, institutional arrangements and responsibilities are defined from national up to the village level. If you remember our previous speaker, Engineer Jachi from TASAF, I think spoke that the implementation arrangements of the TASAF program is actually decentralized in the sense that it goes from the national to local level. And in this sense that now at least the roles were being identified and actually defined and actually being known and understood among the implementation levels from the national, regional, then a district, then a ward level, and then a village level. But also even at the community management committees level, that is actually the CMC. Next. And in terms of the coherence and integration across the programs, we had also two ratings, emerging and moderate. Starting with emerging, it was also found that efforts to harmonize with the other programs was actually found limited. And this is actually speak to the other non-contributory social protection programs that are existing within the country, that it was a bit difficult actually to harmonize the public works interventions with the other existing programs in the areas where this component is being implemented. But not only that, it was also even within the program, among these three components, it was also found as a challenge to link up with the public works component with the other two components of the program, in the sense that the livelihoods, but also the conditional cash transfer and the basic cash transfer. So that at some point where there is some public works sub projects that are more or less linked to livelihoods, I think that link was a bit lacking. And in terms of the sub projects links to local development and the priority setting annual plans, I think this was also lacking, in the sense that even if some of the TASAF program plans are actually being put into the budget plans and budget books of the districts, but still it was a bit difficult to link up these two these plans at the local level and the public works interventions that are being implemented for actual future maintenance and sustainability of these interventions that are being implemented. But also in terms of at the moderate part, it was also found that the framework for harmonization of social protection program, including the public works, was in place. But also, as Jachi has pointed out, National Steering Committee is also in place, and the donor partnership meetings, all the donors that are contributing to the implementation of TASAF, including the ILO, are also being coordinated very well in terms of doing the monthly meetings and also discussing the updates, but also discussing on how technical oversight and technical assistance and support can be provided to the improved implementation of the TASAF program. But also the regional secretariat and district councils, these are the bodies and the areas where and the institutional arrangements where if actually utilized well, I think there could be improvement in terms of the implementation of the TASAF for public works interventional components. Next. Now, on the skills and employability, here I think we were looking at the areas of skills acquisition, but also in the future and using the future skills that actually were acquired during implementation of the public works projects. And now in this area, the area was rated as emerging, in the sense that it was found that trainings focused on sub-project selection and management, monitoring pre-project skills training was actually limited, and was also not linked to longer-term employability potentials. Yes, we did some interviews with the beneficiaries. Some of them were actually confessing that they have also gained some retro skills in the course of the implementation of some of the identified sub-projects. But it was a bit difficult, hard actually to link the acquired skills with also other required skills and knowledge actually to do other more or less similar interventions within the areas. Next. Now, in terms of the working conditions and labor practice, I think which is the final key area. This was rated into different, actually two different levels, emerging and moderate. Starting with emerging, it was found that I think there was a provision of personal protective equipment during the implementation of these public works interventions. However, it was actually found that it was not uniform across all the sub-projects that were assessed. But also there was the absence of contract signed between the beneficial worker and the district, that means the PAA, the project information authority, but participants understood the expected output, wage rate, safe issues, and the guidance mechanisms which are in place. And these actually were also in alignment with the labor standards, as per ILO labor standards and the guidelines. But also rights to collective bargaining and to form association were also not given emphasis during the pre-project activities. And on the moderate side, it was found that beneficiaries are provided with sufficient small hand tools, such as the hose and the other tools that were needed. And as the chief engineer, Barnabas Jachi, highlighted out, that whenever there is a budget for the implementation of the identified public works sub-project, 75% should be used for wages and 25% should be used for tools. Now, it was also found that actually pit latrines installed on the site and also appropriate working hours also actually were observed. It was also found provision of first aid kits were also in some of the other areas were also there. And at some point, some of the beneficiaries were also even taught on how to provide the first aid kit or the first aid in case of any accidents or any emergency that was requiring of the first aid. But also there was a minimum working age observed. That means there was no child labor, but also there were some of the considerations, especially for the people who were unable to work at that moment, people like lactating women, people like pregnant women, or people like actual old age people. These were actually considered given some light duties depending on their context. But also there is training on safety, focus on first aid administration, as what I have also highlighted. Now, these are the key findings. And now in the next slide, I think it's actually for the recommendations based on the findings. In terms of the way forward and recommendations, it was found that on the key area of the nature of benefits, it was actually recommended to fast track payment of wages, that after the beneficiaries have worked, has completed a certain work, that it would be very important to process their payments as soon as possible so that they can be able to use the money as they would like to wish. And in terms of asset creation, the recommendations were actually to improve the quality of assets in the various areas, including to selection, where now in the selection process, integration into the local development plans is paramount to ensure that whenever the public health sub-projects are being implemented, should be in sync with the plans and the budgeting of the local government authorities. But also in terms of design, it was ensuring that there should be enough of technical capacity to ensure that people at the local level, especially those who are involved in the supervision of the implementation of these identified sub-projects, are actually heavily engaged, and they also understand the design issues so that it can also even be very, very easy to provide adequate administrative support during the implementation. In terms of construction, enough technical supervision and monitoring was also emphasized. Of course, maintenance, which actually related to village council and the district level awareness on their ownership and responsibilities, as well as sustainability, these were also the issues that were emphasized as part of the recommendations. For creation of sustainability assets, it was also recommended that it's very important to strengthen linkage with the sectoral agencies and other programs through existing administrative tools. And in this case, actually TASAF was, it was emphasized that actually TASAF should not be seen as an isolated project or a solo project, rather than being used at the local level as an opportunity where actually the local level management can use the TASAF resources and the other projects even to capitalize in the actual arrangement of limited resources at the local level. Next. Now, on the area of institutional coordination and financing, I think there was no recommendation on this area, but on the M1E, it was found that I think there were no some indicators to track the impact of the public works interventions that are being implemented in the areas of asset creation, quality of assets, employability, sustainability, maintenance, and the other related related to the tracking the progress and the impact of these identified public sub-projects. In terms of the coherence and integration, it was found that that the planning of sub-projects can be improved by linking assets to long-term economic and employability potentials, links assets to food security, as well as climate change adaptation. And in terms of skills and employability, it was found that it's very important to engage the national level training institutions like the vocational educational training authorities and the appropriate technical colleges, so that also we can link the implementation of these sub-projects with the actual required skills, so that the local service providers and other people who are involved in administration and the implementation of the program can be able to have these required skills actually for implementation and production of the quality assets, but also even for future use of these skills. And in terms of the conditions of work, I think the emphasis was on enforcing consistent standards across areas of coverage and ensuring actually there is an enhancement of capacity of program implementers on standards. Next.
Now Markku comes in.
Yes. So Markku, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dampu. Yes, so as Timo noted earlier, my background is not in public work, so the field was fairly new to me when I first got the ISPA Public Works tool in my hand. So I have to say that I was a little bit scared to see all the hundreds of questions and complicated questions and technical questions. But luckily we had a very excellent consultant, Markku, with us, so who was able to guide us through all the also technical questions. But perhaps from my side, I have to say that the assessment matrix was very useful in highlighting the kind of the key areas on which to concentrate. And then another thing which I found very useful in terms of methods that I think we were practicing a lot when we were collecting the information was the triangulation. We were discussing with TASAF, we were discussing with district people, with ward people, with village leaders, and with the members who were actually working, and through these different informations we were able to kind of get the much richer picture. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yes, so I just a few additional observations and also a few additional questions, also partly to Jachi, who might be able to answer them, and these are basically underlining the point that Dampu already discussed earlier. But before kind of adding a few observations, I think it's good to note that Jachi's team in TASAF is a very small team, only few people, and they have been able to really put together quite impressive public works program in a very short time, with of course with the assistance from the people, district officials from the 44 districts where TASAF now operates. So next slide. As Dampu already noted, over 70% of the participants are women, and kind of for an outsider, it was a little bit surprising to see so many old women doing road construction, kind of building dams and so on, even though perhaps they were not asked to do the heaviest work, and also being pregnant and lactating women there. So kind of for an outsider, you are asking whether there would be alternatives for public works for these types of people. For example, a universal social pension that they have already started in Zanzibar, or some kind of maternity grant Next slide. One point on regarding the nature of benefit, Dampu already noted that the daily wage for public work was 90% of the prevailing daily wage, and the question comes to our mind is that whether daily wage is below the kind of market daily wage can be considered as a social protection, or whether the rate should be increased. And also it would be interesting to know how much energy is consumed by the workers and how much money is needed to replenish these calories. So that would be another way of considering whether the daily wage that TASAF currently pays. And in terms of timing, social protection needs to be timely, and during our ISPA, the data collection for the ISPA tool, we found that in some places people were a few weeks late, but also later when we were doing another public works assessment. I think we found that the payment of wages was up to 3 months late, especially in some of the remote rural areas. And I know that TASAF is working on this, but it would be interesting to hear from Jachi what kind of changes you have introduced in order to be able to pay better on time. Next, please. Yes, I think asset creation has been emphasized, that it is very, very critical, and also what we found out was that there was a large variation in asset quality, especially between different regions. And again, I think Jachi would be in a good position to comment on that one. Why are we having better quality assets in some areas and much worse quality in some areas? And at least some of the reasons that we were able to identify were that in some areas they didn't have enough capital input to finish some work. In some other areas there wasn't the proper coordination between the village and the ward and district, and perhaps one of the very worrying things that was also mentioned by Dampu was that no one really knew who was responsible for maintaining these. The villagers were saying that it's going to be the district, and the district told that it's going to be the village. The district doesn't have the funds, so that is really an important area for sustainability. Next, please. Yes, public works planning process needs to be strengthened at all level, and I think the district level technical teams are key in this process, but also the village level participation in the planning is essential. The village level, there was some participation, but for example, we were I think with Dampu and Jachi in Itilima in last May, and reviewing again the public works program, and interestingly, in one district there were 200 villages that all had decided that they would like to have a well, and we were wondering that how is it possible that all these 200 villages independently from each other have decided that they all need a well. Later we found out that it was actually the district that had been kind of suggesting that they should have wells, and in this case it made sense because they had another bigger water project through which they perhaps then got some additional assets to support this building of wells. But again, in the long run, I think it's critical that especially for the maintenance of these assets, that village level people feel that they actually own these assets. Next. And then again on monitoring and evaluation, I think this was again made already by Dampu, is that in the monitoring and evaluation system of TASAF, it concentrates on the household level data, and there's not really anything on the quality of assets. So certainly the quality of the assets should be somehow monitored. Next. Yeah, so there are here some areas that no one is expecting that ISPA 2 would cover, but I think these are still important questions when we are thinking the usefulness of the public works program. The impact of public work beneficiaries is one of the key areas, and I think World Bank is doing good work on this one in Tanzania. And then we have the other critical questions, whether the public works programs are value for money, and we were trying to estimate the total costs of these public works, but I don't think we got really to the end, because I think it's a very complicated process. And as we know, public work programs are much more expensive than the cash transfers, and if the assets will remain in place and are useful for these people, then probably public works are value for money. But if they are not, like we have seen that in many cases, they after few years the value of assets has deteriorated. So then we have to consider of using cash transfers instead. And then the last point is again on quality of assets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Markku. Very good. And we would now invite Barnabas Jachi again to tell us what has happened in Tanzania in TASAF after the public works assessment, maybe as a result of the public works assessment, but also independently of this assessment. Maybe one thing I want to mention here is that it seems that at the very high political level, there is very strong support for this public works approach to cash transfers, and some hesitation maybe towards cash transfers without the labor requirement. The president's elections manifesto spoke about Hapakazi too, which means it's all about work. So this public works approach seems to have political support. So that shows that public works is going to be a very important approach to social protection cash transfers in Tanzania in the future. But now let me invite Chief Engineer Jachi to tell us about whether this assessment was useful and what action TASAF has taken since the assessment. Welcome.
Thank you, Timo, for inviting me once again. Can we go to the next slide? But before I go to the slide, there have been an overwhelming demand from the district. When the assessment was done, we were only in 8 districts, but now we have rolled out to 44 districts. But then the first phase of the program is winding up next year in July. So the government has made a number of visits to various districts, including Zanzibar, to see how best the new phase will look like. And one of the areas that the government is very keen is that for those who are able to work, they have to work throughout the year. And so we are still in a very initial stage of designing the program. But the government is very positive to ensure that not the country. But then we'll have to look into the segment of the age group that only those who are able to work, that is 18 years and 60 years, they might participate in public works rather than receiving the cash transfer is being done right now. But also for those who are not able to work, then they will continue with this CC2. So we are just at a very initial stage, and the coming mission in October, one of the area which we look into is the identification mission and designing a new program that will roll out from year 2018 for the next 5 years. So that is one of the area. But in order to address the technical gaps at the community level, each district formed a team of experts from engineering, natural resource management, agriculture, environment, road. So this is a team which is going through in each district. I mean, in each project, and support provides technical support to the local service provider, and the local service provider is an ordinary person, a skilled one in the village, who is not supporting in the program known as in IEEP. We organize a 6 days technical training for the local service provider in the 19 districts out of the 44 district. Not only that, but also one of the area where the ISPA, the public technical manual, the public works handbook, they were all in English, and it was very difficult for the local provided the community level to make an interpretation of the sector norms and standard. So we decided to is on the principles and the concept of public works, the role and responsibility of local service provider, the community management committee, the role of the technical teams, how to handle grievances, complaints, job card, and everything is covered under this Kiswahili handbook, utekelezaji wa miradi ya muda. Also, we have another booklet on rainwater harvesting. You know, in this Tanzania is the area where we receive substantial amount of rain, the minimum being maybe 500 millimeter per year in some places, for agriculture as well as domestic use. Another booklet is on compositing. In some areas which are very bare, we develop on how to make compost manure so that communities can do it and use it to improve agriculture production. Another booklet is, there are so many, like Fanyaju, the use of bands, intercropping, as well as other, you know, so many. The other one is on the basic technologies, the basic concept in technologies, mixing concrete, the type of stone, sand, and so forth. But the other one is on how to make simple surveying equipment using A which is a very simple thing that can be made at the community level, and also the pipe frame, and how to measure the contours, because whenever you are applying soil and the slope. And then the last one was on the basics of task rate, and that can be used at the community level. Not only that, but also develop standard drawings out of the manual. We developed standard drawings that covers many areas of soil and water conservation, rainwater harvesting, community road, charcoal dams and dams. There's a project based on this. So those are some of the initiatives that have been taken. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. More training for the local level staff, particularly at the ward level and at the district level. But also there's a technical manual which was in Kiswahili, in English, and now the technical manual has been translated into Kiswahili for use by the sector expert at the district level. So, but then, as I said before, there's a demand, a high demand. People are more requesting to implement public works, especially the politicians, because they could see. For example, when I was during the mission in Tulima, the regional commissioner, he was very much in favor of implementing public works, because you could see that, okay, there is an asset that has been created, but people have got an income, but they're also using the asset to produce to increase income through agriculture, and even getting next slide. Okay, so those are some of the drawings which we have developed. Yeah. Also, another area was on the material plans, as well as operation maintenance, as Dampu, Markku has said. Material plans now, which are being developed at the community level, they are being discussed and integrated into the ward development plan, as well as the council management plan. So the council knows that, okay, a certain activity is implemented in a certain village, and that will allow to avail staff and go to monitor and provide technical support in a more professional way. Maybe I could show some of the drawings that are included in this. It includes improved pits, herringbones, eyebrow basin, degraded structures, flood protection structure, and so on in the implementation of this project. Next slide. I know that the recommendations for ISTA recommendations are so many, and we need also to take one after another. Here you can see This is the Stone Check Dam in central part of the Tanzania, which is normally very dry. So you can see arrangement of the stones reduces the soil erosion, and in that case, the upstream side, you can do some agricultural activities. Next. Yeah, here is a semicircular band. This is also a central part of the country. In this village, they had 9 sub-projects, including this one, which is on semicircular band. They were constructed about 1,500 of these, and see that they could tap rainwater. And for this year, it was a kind of a demonstration plot with the community. So since this was done in this year, the harvest almost doubled. Now, I'm told that for this year, most of the beneficiaries, they want to practice this kind of technology, which is a very simple, digging the soil in a semicircular band, you harvest rainwater and you plant the trees. Next.
Barnabas, please, you can show the last slides. They are photos, but time is running and we are running short of time.
Yeah, okay.
So we have seen about 8 or 9 or 10 questions that we received, but I think we can agree that we can try to have bilateral contacts with those people who have asked the questions. If you agree, I would like to invite Veronica now to give some of her comments, and I want to thank Barnabas and Dampu and Markku for your inputs.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for these really interesting presentations, and thanks first and foremost for your willingness to use an ISPA tool, and I was really glad to hear also what Timo called organic fit between the ISPA tool design and the needs to assess the TASAF. So this is really great, and I think the presentation has really shown that this has been very, very useful, it seems, in terms of the recommendations and findings it produced. And I mean, for me, it's really, really great to see the impact it seems to have had in terms of already acting on the recommendations and taking steps to improve this. I mean, in terms of discussants, I don't have much to comment on. I just, other than to commend you for the process you've carried out. It's really great to see that this was an ISPA tool application as we really wish to see it in terms of government ownership, cross-sector participation of multiple stakeholders. I mean, your presentation has really shown that applying the criteria in the tool across different key areas allows to identify strengths and weaknesses. In this case, that the program is performing very strong in terms of the targeting and the benefit design, and that some improvements are needed on other aspects such as the quality of assets, the technical support, a lack of harmonization, more attention to skills and employability, etc. And then to see that a lot of these areas that were ranked weakly, action has already been taken to improve the programs. This is really, really great to see. So thanks a lot. I don't know whether we should move to the questions that we've received from the organizers. I understand that if people are interested and stay on, we can go a little bit over time. So Timo, do you want to raise the questions from the audience, or should I do this, or how do we want to go about this?
Maybe I can. Some of the questions have been answered in the presentation. For instance, there was a question about the relationship between public works wages compared to normal wages, and I think it was mentioned that it's 90% of the rural minimum wage at the moment. There was question about the household, how the household data were collected. That's explained fairly well in the report, which you will find on the socialprotection.org website. Then there was question about how are the volunteers at the community level compensated, the members of the community management committee. Would Barnabas or Dampu want to reply to this? You have to switch on your mics.
At the community level during the community meeting, and one of the criteria that this is basically a voluntary work, and so somebody who is being selected by other community members to a community management committee is really one of the conditions that it is basically a voluntary work. But then when they are doing activities like yes, and some other activities that involve them to travel away from the village, they are normally compensated in terms of fare, accommodation, and meals. So it's not a direct kind of thing, but these are some of the benefits. But not only that, because they are moving around the villages, they are well respected, and during the civic election, many of them were selected to be the member of the village council, the chairperson. These are the positions whereby people are being elected by their communities. So it's a kind of respect, but there is a kind of Timo, to you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't have the microphone on. I was saying that Barnabas already replied to some of the questions that we see here on our chat column. Then there's quite a number of questions which I would like to kind of combine into one and invite Dampu and Barnabas to reply. There are questions like, what is the relationship between what are the basic models of social work in Tanzania, and what's the relationship between the public works program and them, and then in low-income countries with relatively low production and high dependence, what could there's a question from Mozambique, what could they learn from Tanzania on the TASAF experience? And also there is a question kind of whether cash transfer programs are making people lazy or killing the entrepreneurship of people. And also a question, well, you already replied that some of the poor people have become more active in community, let's say, decision making. But if you could reply the question of, you know, do we see people becoming lazy or unenterprising, or is this an encouragement to people to take action?
Who start? Dampu?
Yeah, I think I can start.
Yeah, okay, Dampu.
Yeah, sure. I think I can start. Yeah, I can start elaborating. Responding to some of the questions, especially on the question that was on the basic models used in Tanzania. Basically, I think you'll also understand that, of course, social work or social protection there should be varieties of social protection benefits need to respond to a number of population segments, to different population segments. And you also understand that different segments of the population has different needs of the social protection benefits. And I think because of that, you will also understand that, of course, if you link this with the ILO recommendations 202 of 2012 of the social protection floor, where actually it has defined four key main guarantees. That if you look at the key social protection basics, they're actually looking at the children, but also universal health coverage. But also if you address all the needs of the working age, of the working people, but also that of the older people, the older population. So looking at the models, and I think in Tanzania it has been defined in different components, in the contributor, now the social contributor, non-contributor, productive inclusion in social services. And in this, I think that's how the social protection interventions has been defined in those four components. And I also see that for a kind of non-contributory interventions like these that are being implemented by TASAF PSSN program, it actually targets the poorest of the poor. And for the case of Tanzania, it's around 15% of the population, which is around 50 million people. And it's really we really see that if there is a careful targeting and enrollment of these poorest of the poor, and you do these interventions to these people, there is actually much improvement in terms of their lives, but also decrease the rates of poverty, according to the various poverty indicators actually that were used during the enrollment. And I think for the TASAF PSSN program, there are a number of impact assessments that have been done, of course, across the whole three components. And I think the results have been showing really improvement in terms of the improved livelihoods of the people who are benefiting from this program. Maybe if I hand it to Jachi for adding some response.
Yeah, I'm responding to the question on being idleness or lazy. Basically, the target population. And we commissioned the National Bureau of Statistics to see whether the targeting was done the right way and whether we have targeted the right people. And the results show that those who were targeted were extremely very poor. And from the cash transfers now, there have been a very big improvement in terms of one, but not only that, people has been organized themselves into savings group. The livelihood enhancement component has not been rolled all over the district. Rather, the community themselves are taking initiative to ensure that they organize into groups and save whatever little they have and do some investment. There are some women who are being organized in group of 15, and they could from the transfer they improve their houses by buying concrete and sheet and by buying livestock. So there are a lot of things which are being done at the community level from their own initiative, because one of the issues that is being done before any payment is communication, to tell them that, okay, this is a program, it has a certain limit of time, so you make sure that the resources, the small resources you are being given, you utilize them quite nicely. And since most of those who are receiving the cash transfers are women, women are caregivers. They are taking after the children. Now the children are going to school. They have some books, material, and so forth. So it has really improved the lives of the many poor in the country.
Thank you, Dampu and Barnabas. If we still have time, we could discuss the one question, which was there was a question about harmonization of social protection programs in Tanzania and whether there is a national framework for the various national social protection programs. I can reply quickly to that. There was also a question whether it would be, whether it has been considered whether these very old people should be supported through public works. Maybe we don't want them to work anymore. Maybe they've worked enough, and whether there is some discussion about providing a social pension for the very old or very severely disabled people, maybe also for the pregnant and lactating mothers. Dampu and Barnabas will know more about this, but I will just say that there was a process for several years where a national social protection framework was being developed. Now it seems that the government has decided to develop a national social protection policy on the basis of the former national social security policy, which is outdated. And it's kind of a question that we always raise in joint reviews, like what is the role of TASAF in the government's plans. TASAF has been mainly, the transfers have been funded by international development partners, World Bank, DFID, and Swedish SIDA, and Irish Aid and UN agencies. On the other hand, TASAF is part of the President's office, and it is very much part of the government of Tanzania's structures. Also, government of Tanzania is paying for all the practical work in the management of TASAF at the local government level, because it is government officers who are managing it, not mainly the TASAF officers. But among the development partners, in the discussion with the government, we are actively raising the question whether a social pension could be another good alternative for supporting the people who cannot work. So then engineers like engineer Jachi could focus on the public works program on those people who can be expected to produce good quality assets and so on. But this is an open question in the policy dialogue within the government and between the partners and the government. But Dampu and Barnabas know more about this, so I would invite you to reply still to this question. I think then our time is over, and then after that we can close and thank all the panelists and all the participants online.
Okay, so Dampu, can you start?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so thank you, Timo. Basically, I think based on the question on the social pension, basically there have been a number of initiatives in the country to establish the universal old age pension. I think partly actually that could have been cover some benefits or some pension and benefits actually to the older people. But unfortunately, that one has not yet been realized. But at least, you know, in Tanzania, there are two parts, Tanzania mainland and Zanzibar. So at least Zanzibar has actually shown the way that since April last year, this scheme was established, and it is actually solely funded by the government of Zanzibar. So it has now started being implemented, where the old people are getting some pensions. But for Tanzania, for the mainland being learning from Zanzibar, they're also in the process to establish the same scheme. Some studies has been done, including also using the basis of the ILO studies, including the the social protection public expenditures reviews that were done in 2010, and now another one is being done in collaboration with the World Bank and UNICEF in the country. So all these studies actually are feeding the actually being used as the basis for the government to establish the same scheme in the Tanzanian mainland. But I think coming to the question of involving the old people and the other, the old people actually in the implementation of the public works interventions, I think there is a number of reasons also to be considered. But I think one is also consideration of the social related aspects. Because I remember during our focus group discussions when we were doing the data collection, we also asked, like why other people, other able people who can work, actually, why should they participate in working rather than the old people and pregnant women? But then the response was that it is also part of socialization. That when old people are participating in their community work, like public works related interventions, is part of for them to see themselves as part of the community, but also they see as themselves as still have value to contribute to the community, and it's also part of the socialization to them. Therefore, and that's why it was actually decided by the community and the CMC as well to be also part of the beneficiaries, even if they were actually given some of the work that actually were, based on their context. Some of the, some light work, maybe bearing, maybe carrying the children, sharpening some of the tools, all that, so that at least they can also justify that actually they are part of the community and actually they participate in the whole process of the implementation. So maybe Jachi, if you could do add up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dampu. Yeah. Thank you so much for your quick response. I could add up by saying that. The government has decided to improve or to review the social protection policy. Before that, we had a social protection policy that is contributory, and that is for the government employees and employees joining the Social Security Fund and so forth. But for the household, there was no such policy, and for that case, the government, because TASAF is dealing with the poor household, and these are the non-contributory side. We are part of a panel and the Prime Minister's office taking part in the review of the new social security policy that we cut across both the contributory and non-contributory, and we hope when the draft will be okay, it will be sent to the Parliament for approval, and poor and vulnerable households are reached through the TASAF intervention. But the question here is now, how does the older people, 60+ years, I think we need to emulate the example of Zanzibar. In Zanzibar, people who are over 70 years, they are all given the universal pension, irrespective of whether you were receiving some income through contribution or not. It doesn't matter. So we are now in the process of having the same thing on the part of the mainland. Thank you.
So thank you all. I think it's easy to end this discussion on a positive tone. TASAF is a very, very good program. It is really reducing the poverty of millions of people in Tanzania. It's not doing wonders, but the way it's been expanded to all districts of this large country, not yet to all villages in all those districts, but a massive expansion of the program has taken place Government is still to decide how to go forward with it. How is TASAF linked to other social protection programs in the country, but it's working on it on this. I think we can also conclude that the ISPA Public Works Assessment tool has been a helpful tool to bring together technical experts like Chief Engineer Barnabas Jachi, who knows everything about public works, and people like us who are development generalists or social protection experts, but don't really know the details of public works and what we actually should be asking when we try to evaluate the programs. I think this has been a very fruitful, very friendly, good cooperation. We have all learned it has been interesting. And if others still remain with questions that you would like to pose, I think the best is that you send those questions to the coordinators at socialprotection.org. They can forward the questions to us. Also, if you want to send the questions to me, my email is timo.voipio, my name, first name, family name, and then thl.fi. thl.fi. And I'm not sure how long we can continue, but I assume that it's now time for us to close. So I really thank socialprotection.org for facilitating this webinar, for the ISPA Secretariat on the hard work by a small group of people coordinating the work of kind of volunteer inputs from several international agencies on developing the ISPA tools. And obviously I want to thank very much Barnabas and Dampu for the excellent work you've been doing, and also for Markku and myself for the work we do to try to support your work. So if the facilitators don't have anything else to add, I think we can close the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Timo.
Thank you.